So, Robert, I'm so happy that you are here to tell us about your journey into lucid dreaming, the gateway to the inner self.
Elaine, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. So how did you get involved with this in the first place?
You know, as a child, I was very interested in dreams. I just thought dreams were incredible theater of the mind. And then in the mid-1970s, one of my brothers came home from college and threw a book at me. It was Carlos Castaneda's book, Journey to Ixtlan. And in that book, there was a technique on how to become consciously aware in the dream state. And after practicing that technique, I had my first lucid dream that I consciously sought out.
So you give tools in your book about how to do that too, right?
Right. I give a lot of tips and techniques on how to become consciously aware in the dream state.
Well, becoming consciously aware in the first place is something that we all need to be able to do because we need to call on that part of ourselves many times during a day. So this is very good practice to extend that out into other areas.
Exactly. I think one of the great things about lucid dreams is not only does it help us become consciously aware in the dream state, but it also makes us become more aware and more thoughtful during our waking lives as well.
So give us an idea about how this works, okay?
Okay. So normally people, when they talk about lucid dreams, that means becoming consciously aware of dreaming while in the dream state. And so here would be an example. Let's say tonight you went to sleep and you were having a dream. You're walking through the forest, and all of a sudden you came to a clearing, and there is your grandmother. But you know your grandmother's been passed away for 40 years. All of a sudden, if you were critically aware enough, you would think, wait a second, Grandma's been dead for 40 years. This must be a dream. And so you achieve that conscious awareness. You realize that you're in the dream state. And then at that moment, you can do pretty much whatever you want. You can fly around. You can have a interesting conversation with your grandmother. Ask her, why are you in my dreams? What do you represent? And so the critical thing about lucid dreaming, though, is that you make that shift. You become consciously aware in the dream state that you're dreaming.
Mm-hmm. So you're dreaming, but you're awake.
Well, you're dreaming, but you're aware that you're dreaming. And once you're aware you're dreaming, you can pretty much do whatever you want.
So you can make it up as you go, right?
Well, to a large degree you can. It's kind of like the magic kingdom of the mind. It's kind of like when you become lucid, that's when you enter the Disneyland of the mind.
Mm-hmm. Well, you make have a little statement here in your book. I consider the lesson in lucidity: the mind, emotions, and mental action precede the effect.
Right, exactly. And I wrote that to remind people, especially people who are new to lucid dreaming, that when you become consciously aware in the dream state, then your mental state, what you're thinking about, what you expect to happen, is very likely to happen. So let's say that I became consciously aware in the dream state and I decided to fly to the top of a tree. Well, if I expected to fly easily, I would accomplish that easily. But if I expected to have trouble, then in my lucid dream, I would have trouble, because that mind and that expectation and belief, they precede the effect of what you experience in the lucid dream.
So we're creating our reality even in our dreams.
It's a beautiful spiritual lesson, lucid dreaming is. In fact, Naropa, the Buddhist Indian yogi from many centuries ago, he called lucid dreaming one of the 6 paths to enlightenment, or more technically, he called dream yoga, and dream yoga used primarily lucid dreaming. But it does show us that in our subconscious mind, in that dream state, that our ideas, our beliefs, our expectations, our emotions, they all work together to form the reality that we create and then experience.
Interesting. So how many years ago did you start realizing this? Were you just as a kid or what?
Oh, it was very interesting. So when I started doing it formally, using the Castaneda approach, It was back in 1975 when I was a junior in high school. And the interesting thing about that is it wasn't until 5 or 6 years later that it was scientifically proven. And so I had about 5 or 6 years there where I'd tell people, oh, I'm becoming consciously aware in the dream state and I can do whatever I want. And people would say, no, you're not doing that. You're having a dream of doing that, or you can't become conscious in the unconscious. And I would keep saying, yes, I can, but I couldn't prove it. So it wasn't until 1980 when Stephen LaBerge at Stanford University managed to write a paper in which he provided the proof or the verification that lucid dreaming was happening. And what he did was this, using himself as the subject in the sleep lab, he put those little polygraph pads on his eyelids so they could record the rapid eye movement. Mm-hmm. And so all of his rapid eye movements, and we know rapid eye movements occur when you're dreaming, all of that was being recorded by machinery in another room. And so what he said that was once he became consciously aware he was dreaming, he would look to the left and right a certain amount of times. And then hopefully on that polygraph paper, they would see his eye movements go from the left to right a certain amount of times. Mm-hmm. And in that way, he would show or he would communicate that he was consciously aware in the dream state. And he did that research. Some other people in England also did similar research. And eventually science accepted what had basically been kind of a myth or kind of a spiritual anecdote for thousands of years. But finally it was scientifically proven.
Interesting. Well, I know that there are some disciplines where they're using tools to get the eyes to go back and forth in order to reprogram the body. There's some disciplines that do that very interestingly.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm sure that you've covered all of that as well in your research. So, okay, so bring us further into this.
Right. So what happened to me? I got started. I seemed to have a natural talent at becoming consciously aware in the dream state. And I started out with the Castaneda technique. And basically, his technique was finding your hands in the dream state. Mm-hmm. And so in his book, Journey to Ixtlan, there really isn't too much about it. So I just kind of made up my own practice, and this is what I did. Before I'd go to sleep each night, I would sit in bed, and I would look at my hands, and the palm of my hands, and as I looked at them, I would mentally tell myself, tonight in my dreams, I'll see my hands and realize I'm dreaming. Tonight in my dreams, I'll see my hands and realize I'm dreaming. And I would repeat that to myself for 3 or 4 minutes until I became too sleepy and had to close my eyes and go to sleep. So after practicing this for 3 nights, I had a dream. And in the dream, I was walking through my high school, and all of a sudden, my hands popped right in front of my face. And I thought, my hands, this is a dream. And I looked around, and it was the most incredible thing to realize that everything around me was a dream creation, that these dream figures that a moment ago I thought were my high school friends, well, now I realize they're dream figures. And this wall that looks so solid, I can walk through that wall right now. And so that's how I initially taught myself how to become consciously aware in the dream state. But after that, go ahead.
No, it's interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so after that, I started using a technique that Stephen LaBerge, the scientist from Stanford, promoted, and he called it the mnemonic induction of lucid dreams, kind of a memory aid for lucid dreams. And what that entailed was so you become awake in the middle of the night just naturally, maybe it's 4 or 5 in the morning, and you have to get up or something. And what he wants you to do at that moment is remember your last dream. Okay, so you remember your last dream, and now you visualize yourself at some appropriate point in that dream becoming consciously aware. So it's kind of like role-playing. You remember that dream, but now you kind of reprogram the dream to see yourself becoming consciously aware. And then you tell yourself, okay, in my next dream, I'm going to realize it's a dream and become consciously aware. And when I started doing that, when I was in college at Drake University, my number of lucid dreams a month shot up to 30 lucid dreams a month.